My phone is my only light in this endless metal maze, yet it tells me I've forgotten 5 entire years of my life. With every merciless flash of the battery warning, I'm losing more than just the light, I'm losing my last hope of finding myself. Just then, a strange ticking sound came from overhead, from a pitch-minus black door embedded where nothing should be. A low footstep came from the pitch black. When the footsteps slowly stopped, a bright light suddenly pierced the darkness. It's just a cell phone. The phone's light illuminated a handsome enough face. He looked weary and haggard, and he seemed to be in a very bad mood. Fourth video, recording starting, the time is 3:51. Jack Morgan said as he started the screen recording, "I still haven't found an exit. Everything here is encased in metal, even the floor and ceiling." Jack Morgan reached out and touched the wall next to him, his fingers feeling its unique texture. Cold, smooth, hard. He then turned the phone's flash toward the metal wall, trying his best to capture all of its forbidding light silver minus gray color on video. These metal corridors are generally square and connect to each other to form a huge metal maze. There are also many metal doors on the walls, but most of them won't open. I climbed out of a freezer in one of those rooms. I don't know where this is. I've never seen a place like this before, not even online, and I haven't found any information here. I don't know how I was sent here either. My memory has a gap. It stops in the summer after my college entrance exams. My earlier memories, my family's dog, my parents, every game I've played, I remember all these things clearly. But after that, it's all gone. Something must have happened for me to be stuffed in a freezer and sent to this place. But what exactly happened, I can't remember at all. As Jack Morgan spoke, his tone became anxious. He took a deep breath and continued. "The time on the phone in my pockets as it's 2030. If this time is real, it means I might have lost a full 5 years of memories. What on earth happened in these 5 years, and where the hell am I?" Just then, with a ding, a notification appeared on the phone screen. Battery to low, unable to use flash. Jack Morgan knew he couldn't waste any more time. No matter what happened before, he had to escape this place first. If he was trapped and died here, then everything that came before would be meaningless. Jack Morgan pressed his lips together, pulled himself together, and continued speaking to the phone. I just say there were some metal doors on the walls? The strange thing is some doors aren't just on the walls, there are doors on the ceiling and floor too. And from one of those doors I heard some noise, some unusual noise. I'm going to check it out now. Having said that, he moved along the left, touching the cold metal wall. A minute later, he stopped and looked up, raising his phone to the dark door right above his head. Can you hear it? There's a sound coming from the door in the ceiling. A very faint ticking sound, like it's coming from far away. The phone's battery is low. I'm going in, Jack Morgan said as he exited the recording mode. After roughly estimating the height, Jack Morgan took a few slow steps back and leapt with all his might, his forefingers hooking tightly onto the edge of the doorframe. In the end, Jack Morgan used every ounce of his strength, using both his hands and feet to finally climb into the door. When he stood on the doorframe and looked up, craning his neck and shining his phone's light into the room, he found it was filled with all sorts of high-precision machinery he didn't recognize, and many of their outer shells had fallen off. Strange Midas-looking mechanical arms extended from the left and right walls like branches, forming a kind of metal forest. At the end of the mechanical arms above, another nude or appeared directly over Jack Morgan's head. The ticking sound was coming from its deepest part. Why is this damn place so weird? Where the hell is this? Jack Morgan said as he carefully climbed upwards, stepping on the mechanical arms. And when Jack Morgan climbed into this door, he finally found the source of that faint ticking sound. It was a small red dot flickering with the ticking sound like the standby signal on a computer. When Jack Morgan shone his phone's flashlight around the red dot, he discovered this place was actually an arc-shaped, domed room with nothing but a few chairs inside. Jack Morgan opened the recording mode again, aiming it at the red dot. Look, there seems to be a screen above this red dot. I'm going to record everything that happens next on my phone. If I lose my memory again for some unknown reason, these records will be my minus. Just as Jack Morgan said that, the slightly hot phone screen suddenly went black, and then his phone brand's logo popped up. It had to run out of battery at the critical moment. Damn it, what a piece of crap phone. Extremely frustrated, Jack Morgan stuffed the phone into his left pants pocket, looked at the red dot before him, and took a deep breath. He knew he had no choice. He was scared that something bad would happen after he touched the red dot, but he was also scared that nothing would happen after he touched it. Because this was his only choice. He had already searched everywhere else. If this red dot didn't react at all, he would be completely trapped in this metal maze. After closing his eyes to calm himself for a moment, Jack Morgan held his breath and reached out, poking his finger at the red dot. When he saw the red dot go out and completely merge with the surrounding darkness, Jack Morgan's heart almost stopped. But soon, everything around him began to tremble. A kind of resonant humming sound came from beneath his feet. The sudden changes around him made Jack Morgan extremely nervous. He kept staring into the surrounding darkness, nervously watching for any possible changes. However, nothing around him changed. The first change appeared in himself. As the red button was pressed, his feet gradually left the ground, and in the end, he was actually flying in the air. This strange change stunned Jack Morgan. What kind of world was he in? I can fly? Magic? A special ability? But before Jack Morgan could be happy for even a second, a muffled sound was heard, and a crack suddenly split open in the wall directly in front of the domed room Jack Morgan was in. An extremely blinding light shot in from the crack, illuminating everything in the room. When a squinting Jack Morgan finally adjusted to the strong light, he saw the domed wall sliding back to the left and right, with the crack as the center. In the moment, the wall slid completely open with a whoosh. A giant planet occupied his entire vision. Jack Morgan felt his heart beating violently, and his throat felt tight as if he was being strangled. Every breath made him feel suffocated. A planet? The very ordinary concept. Only when it truly and tangibly appeared before his eyes could he feel the heavy weight of the word. The light of a star illuminated one side of the planet, while the other side, hidden in darkness, was like the giant mouth of an abyss, making Jack Morgan feel the shiver of being stared at by a colossal beast of the firmament. Jack Morgan suddenly remembered something. He looked down at his floating feet, then looked up at the giant planet beyond the glass. Holy crap! I've been in outer space all along? Jack Morgan finally understood. He understood why there were doors on the ceiling and floor, and why those walls were all metal. Because those weren't doors at all, they were space capsules. It turned out that since he woke up, he had been walking horizontally on the walls. After being in shock for a long time, Jack Morgan moved his face closer, pressing it against the glass to identify it carefully. Although it was gray, he was very sure that this planet was Earth. It was just that things were a bit different from before. The blue planet was completely wrapped in a mass of gray metal junk, as if covered by a layer of gray goods. That metal junk was all satellites, a dense collection of various satellite debris that surrounded the entire planet. Jack Morgan could even vaguely make out the outlines of some of them with his naked eye from here, which showed just how large those satellites were. Why are there so many satellites? What year is it exactly? Jack Morgan was very sure that the technology of the era in his memory was absolutely incapable of doing something like this, not even with the addition of his 5 lost years. And when Jack Morgan's gaze moved from Earth to the left, it instantly froze. A silver-gray planetary ring, like a belt, was wrapped around Earth's waist, and the moon that should have been there had disappeared. Most of the planetary ring was made up of rocks, spacecraft, and space station wreckage, and he was currently located right in the middle of it. At this moment, Jack Morgan finally figured out the question that had been bothering him since he woke up, where exactly he was. He was inside a large space station, one that was enveloped by the moon's planetary ring. But then the second question followed: how was he supposed to get back? Being in a space station in space and one that seemed half-minus derelict trying to get from the sky back to the ground was undoubtedly harder than reaching the heavens. However, this was a problem Jack Morgan didn't need to solve because cruel reality had already solved it for him. The tremors throughout the space station were intensifying. The screen behind him was constantly flickering and even felt a bit hot to the touch. Jack Morgan was shocked to find that his recent action seemed to have broken the long-maintained, delicate balance of this place. Along with these movements, Jack Morgan saw a terrifying change outside the glass. The gyroscope-like space station beneath him was slowly pulling out of the planetary ring, tilting towards Earth's atmosphere. A chill instantly shot up his spine to his brain. Holy crap! This thing is going to fall straight back. I want to go back, but not like this. Do something. I have to do something. Cold sweat started to bead on Jack Morgan's forehead. He quickly went to the flickering screen and found that no matter what he did, there was no response. He pushed off the glass with both hands and quickly swam out of this place, floating towards other rooms. Perhaps because Jack Morgan had just activated something, some of the closed capsule doors could now be opened. Dripping with cold sweat from anxiety, Jack Morgan desperately searched for a last glimmer of hope in various space capsules, whether it was an escape pod or anything else, as long as he could survive. Hurry, hurry, hurry! Jack Morgan could already feel the increasing centrifugal force as the entire space capsule tumbled. He knew he didn't have much time left. Cargo bays, exercise bays, all sorts of capsules were found one by Jack Morgan. With a bang, a half-minus closed capsule door was violently pushed open by Jack Morgan. Rows of robots, secured to the wall, ceiling, and floor, appeared before him. These robots were largely humanoid, except for the reverse-minus jointed iron hooves and the single-minus panel displays that served as their eyes. He had no time to be amazed by the technology of these robots. Right now, he just wanted to ask them if they knew where the escape pods were. Seeing them, Jack Morgan felt as if he saw a last shred of hope. He hurriedly undid their restraints and began to look for the robot's power switches. As he fumbled around, Jack Morgan's finger brushed across a screen under one's armpit, and the display that substituted for the robot's eye suddenly lit up, showing two simple eye icons. Hello? Can you hear me? Where are the escape pods? Where are the escape pods? Jack Morgan grabbed the floating robot and asked it rapidly. The robot immediately responded, its voice calm yet mechanical. Descarga and duplicate each 10%, 50%, 70%. English data packet loading complete. Greetings, esteemed user. Welcome to Tapa I Technology Products. Please customize a name for this product. What the hell? Are you kidding me? So much trouble? Name customization successful. What the hell? Are you kidding me? So much trouble. Please select an initial mode. 3 options appeared on the robot's display: Guardian mode, Caregiver mode, and Entertainment mode. Burning with anxiety, Jack Morgan quickly tapped Guardian mode, but then various other options popped up. He really didn't expect that setting up a new robot would be so complicated. As the space station's trembling started to shake some parts loose, which were now floating in the air, Jack Morgan finally finished the setup. Hello, Jack Morgan. What the hell? Are you kidding me? So much trouble. Is happy to serve you. 2 smiling eyes appeared on the robot's display. Do you recognize this place? It's about to crash. Do you know where any escape pods or ships are? Jack Morgan asked urgently. Unexpectedly, the robot actually reacted. Level 1 raid crisis for user. Automatical arm and full video and audio recording initiated. Initiating emergency rescuing satellite positioning unresponsive. Network connection failed. Insufficient data. Rescue not possible. At that moment, the terrifying metallic screeching sound came from outside, as if the entire space station was about to be torn apart. The fear of death made Jack Morgan's body tremble uncontrollably. Just as he was about to give up on this useless robot and look for other solutions, the robot suddenly showed new activity. Connecting to unknown subnet 12.128. Cone. Data collection complete. Rescue plan formulation failed. Error reason: insufficient logical thinking ability, unable to comprehend subnet data logic. Please grant ROT permission authorization to user. After agreement, AI logical system iteration will be initiated based on subnet data. Judgment rescue probability will increase by 13.3%. Agreed. Agreed. Although Jack Morgan didn't quite understand what it was saying, he understood the part about the increased probability of rescue. System iteration beginning. A progress bar appeared on the robot's display. Just then, the entire capsule suddenly broke apart and a metal plate came flying towards the robot's head like a guillotine. Jack Morgan grabbed its metal arm and pulled it hard towards himself. However, he forgot that he was in a 0- gravity state. When he pulled the robot over, due to the conservation of momentum, he moved to the robot's position. Seeing the metal plate about to pierce his own head, Jack Morgan kicked the robot hard. The metal plate grazed past Jack Morgan's face. Pushed by this force, Jack Morgan didn't stop until he hit a wall. Before he could even catch his breath, a rapidly spinning nut shot towards his neck like a bullet. Just as the nut was about to pierce Jack Morgan's neck, an iron hand suddenly reached out from the side. With a clang, the two collided, creating a shower of sparks, and the nut was sent flying far away. Jack Morgan followed the metal arm with his eyes and found that the robot he had just activated was shielding the left half of his body with its own metal body. The robot slowly raised its metal head and met Jack Morgan's eyes. What the hell? What kind of crappy name is this? The robot said. Hearing the robot's words, Jack Morgan was momentarily stunned, almost thinking he had misheard. Did this robot just curse? What are you staring at? Reminiscing about your days in heaven, licking mountains of rice and eating mountains of noodles? I'm talking to you. When the robot spoke again, Jack Morgan finally reacted. This must be the change from the logical system iteration he had just heard about. But he really didn't expect the robot's intelligence to change so dramatically after the system iteration. The cold, mechanical robot had actually learned to curse. Is it that good? It iterates that fast? But of course. What do you think artificial intelligence is? The robot placed its hands on its hips, leaning back slightly with a very proud look. Although it was shocking, nothing mattered in the face of death. He couldn't afford to be shocked. The space station was descending, and if they didn't find a way to save themselves, they would both be done for. Did you find the location of an escape pod from the subnet data? Jack Morgan quickly asked the robot. Nope. The robot's words instantly sent Jack Morgan's rising hopes crashing to the bottom. But we don't need to escape. This thing has reverse thrusters. Although I don't know how many of them are usable, I estimate the probability of it breaking up from friction with the atmosphere and the final impact is less than 10%. This news was indeed good news, but just because the spaceship wouldn't disintegrate didn't mean he would land in one piece. Looking at the metal parts floating all over due to weightlessness, one could imagine what terrible killing tools they would become once they were subject to Earth's gravity. With his life on the line, Jack Morgan's mind began to spin rapidly. Robot, I need a safe place, a space to cushion the impact of landing and to avoid the parts. Do you know where such a place is on this space station? How should I know? The screws on my body never worked on this thing, the robot said with a shrug, spreading its hands. Dang it. Didn't you connect to some subnet data? Isn't there a map or something in it? Did you only learn how to be a potty mouth and talk trash? Jack Morgan quickly used his hands and feet to get to the doorway and carefully poked his head out to look around. Hey, how can you blame me for that? That damn subnet wasn't even from the ship. God knows which nearby wreckage forgot to turn off its Wi-Fi. The robot followed behind Jack Morgan, talking like a street punk. Its feet and hands seemed to have magnets or suction cups of some kind, allowing it to stand easily on the ground even in this weightless state. Besides, what right do you have to look down on swearing? The art of language began with swearing. Frustrated and anxious, Jack Morgan couldn't be bothered to argue with this foul-mouthed robot. He just wanted to live. Jack Morgan racked his brain, thinking of a way to break the deadlock. Under the life, and death crisis, his mind worked at lightning speed. Suddenly, he thought of the red dot from before. That's right, that glitching monitor. Although the thing was clearly broken and he couldn't use it, just because he couldn't use it didn't mean something else couldn't. Robot, can you get data out of a broken computer? Like hacking or something? Who are you looking down on? That's my specialty. As its coke, an emoticon popped up on the robot's head screen. Great, follow me. Jack Morgan lead the robot, dodging the various floating parts and started to head back the way they came. When Jack Morgan returned to the domed glass room, he found that the earth behind the glass had now become a behemoth. It was gradually getting bigger, as if it were a giant leviate's mouth wide open, ready to swallow them whole with that dark mole. Watching his home planet slowly yet surely magnify, a sense of oppression and suffocation washed over him. At this moment, Jack Morgan finally understood what megalophobia felt like. Jack Morgan suppressed the fear in his heart, trying his best not to look out the glass. He led the robot to the constantly glitching screen. This is it, hurry up, we don't have much time. Watch this. Then Jack Morgan saw its left hand rapidly split apart, and several fiber optic cables like jellyfish tentacles extended from it, quickly sliding into the crevice on the left edge of the monitor. Immediately after, the images on the screen started flickering even more rapidly. A sightseeing advertisement flashed by, and only then did Jack Morgan realize that this place was just a sightseeing spot specially reserved by the space station. Just then, a faint crack sound was heard. Jack Morgan turned his head to the left. When he saw a crack, accompanied by the cracking sound, rapidly crawl up the entire glass dome from the bottom, he instantly sucked in a cold breath, feeling as if his soul was about to float out of the top of his head. Hurry up. This glass dome is about to give way. Jack Morgan was so scared that cold sweat broke out. He quickly looked around for a solution. Suddenly, he pushed off with his feet and went to where the red dot had been, pressing it forcefully. With a stutter, the previously lowered arc-shaped wall slowly began to rise. However, before Jack Morgan could even catch half a breath, with a loud crash, the glass that hadn't been fully sealed instantly shattered and was sucked outside, directly exposing the current Jack Morgan to outer space. In the nick of time, Jack Morgan grabbed onto a nearby chair, practically wedging his entire body into it. Only then was he not pulled out by the suction force. At this moment, Jack Morgan began to feel suffocated. His saliva started to boil, his lungs began to expand, and his skin started to sweat profusely, accompanied by a strong burning sensation. Hurry up, Jack Morgan shouted at the robot with the last ounce of his strength. As the screen flickered rapidly a few times, the fiber optic cables quickly retracted. The robot lifted its foot and kicked the screen hard several times. Go to hell, are you gonna give me the data or not? Are you gonna give it to me? After kicking the screen to pieces, it used the fiber optics to search among the parts for a while. When it found a chip the size of a fingernail, it directly inserted it into a slot on its forearm. After its face screen flashed rapidly, a large exclamation mark appeared. Map found. Go to Sector E4. Just then, the arc-shaped wall above finally closed, and that intense feeling of discomfort finally disappeared. Weak and pale, Jack Morgan floated upside down in mid-air and gave it a thumbs up. Awesome. Jack Morgan was incredibly glad that he had activated such a robot. He had finally found a way out of a dead -end situation. The robot came over and helped tear upright. Just one atmosphere of pressure, look how tired you are. Bodies made of flesh are so weak. With the robot's help, Jack Morgan arrived at the so- called D for capsule. It looked like a cultivation bay. All sorts of black, dry -up traces covered the floor and ceiling. These were all plants, but with no one to care for them, they had completely withered and weathered away. What are we doing here? Is it safe enough? Jack Morgan asked. The robot didn't speak. Its right index finger shot out a jet of blue flame, cutting into the left wall. As the wall was cut open, a kind of jelly like blue gel slid out from inside. This gel contains the oxygen and water the human body needs, and it provides enough cushioning. This is the plan I calculated to have the highest success rate. After all this time and trouble, he finally saw a glimmer of hope for survival. Jack Morgan couldn't be bothered with anything else and dove right in. When he turned around to let the robot in, he found it walking out. Where are you going? Don't you want to live? You stay in there. I'm going to make sure this place's anti-mina Simpact equipment is working, the robot said as it walked out. Just as Jack Morgan was about to say something, the whole room tilted instantly and all sorts of soil and debris pressed down on him. He had no choice but to shrink his entire body into the gel. His body was in a weightless state, surrounded by sticky, slippery jelly. He was clearly buried, yet when this jelly filled his lungs, he could still breathe. It was a very strange feeling. However, when a strong shaking sensation came, Jack Morgan couldn't be bothered with that feeling anymore. He hugged himself as tightly as possible, curling into a ball. At this moment, Jack Morgan felt like he was on a roller coaster without a seatbelt, being thrown left and right. But luckily, with the protection of the gel, his body wasn't smashed to pieces. He didn't know how much time had passed, but when the final, extremely violent impact came, everything fell silent. Feeling that things had quieted down outside, Jack Morgan in the gel used his hands and feet to paddle his way out. But just as he reached the edge of the gel, something blocked his way, preventing him from getting out. Anxiously, he turned around and kicked hard. After a dozen kicks, a beam of light shot into the dark gel. Jack Morgan swam towards the light. The moment he emerged from the gel, moist air filled his lungs and cold rain fell from the sky, washing over his body. At this moment, Jack Morgan fell treeborn. The wall of the cultivation bay was torn open with a large hole. Jack Morgan stared blankly at the raindrops falling from the sky and suddenly started laughing. He was back. He had finally returned to Earth alive. Finally having escaped death, Jack Morgan was overcome with emotion. Some things are only understood to be precious after they are lost. Feeling the pull of Earth's gravity again, Jack Morgan would throw his head back and roar wildly one moment, then gently kiss the ground the next. After being excited for a good while, he finally managed to calm himself down. Although the biggest crisis was over, Jack Morgan knew he was still not out of danger. He looked around and found that the entire capsule was cracked open and in a complete mess, almost unrecognizable from its former self. That robot was right. Even so, this space station hadn't disintegrated mid-air, but it didn't seem to be in much better shape either. It just hadn't disintegrated. The entire space station lay on the ground, turned into a city of metal ruins. If he hadn't shrunk his entire body into the jelly, he would have been deader than dead. Wait, what about the robot? Is it still alive? At this thought, he suddenly became nervous. Jack Morgan began to rummage through the room, searching for the robot he had activated. Although it was a robot, it was too much like a person. Jack Morgan couldn't help but see it as a person. Just as he reached the edge of the corridor, a collapsed, shriveled robot hid by the doorframe made Jack Morgan's heart clench. Jack Morgan picked it up and found that the robot head was completely unresponsive. His hands trembled slightly. Just then, the sound of footsteps was heard, and a robot with a missing arm walked in from outside. It met the eyes of Jack Morgan, who was holding the head. "What are you doing?" Jack Morgan paused, then casually tossed the robot head in his hand. "Nothing. Just studying it." "Damn it, wrong one." "Where did you just go?" Jack Morgan asked as he walked towards the robot. The impact force was too great. It sent me flying, and some of my parts were damaged, so I went to find some replacements. The robot turned and pulled out a mechanical arm from the side and began to replace its own. The robot head from just now must have been its. "It's good that you're okay." Jack Morgan patted its arm and looked up at the sky. The whole sky was gray and it was constantly raining. It seemed he had to leave this place first and look for other landmarks. "By the way, can't you get a location? Can you locate where we are now?" The robot switched between various tools on its fingers, rapidly spinning as it replaced its broken arm. "Give me a moment." A line of text appeared on its blue display connecting to network. As the immediate survival crisis faded, the suppressed instinct to survive began to emerge. It was raining and rainwater was constantly flowing in from various cracks. A layer of rainwater up to his ankles had already accumulated on the ground. Parched, Jack Morgan took advantage of the robot connecting to the network to cup some rainwater and take a large gulp. A strong bitterness mixed with an intense metallic taste instantly filled his mouth. With a pained expression, Jack Morgan immediately spat it out again. This rainwater doesn't taste right. Jack Morgan's mood became a bit heavy. Although his memories were fragmented, he knew for sure that rainwater definitely didn't taste like this. Something was definitely wrong here. After a short while, seeing the robot raise its head, Jack Morgan quickly asked, "How is it? Are you connected?" "Connected, but whether I report an alarm or contact Tapa iTechnology's customer service, it shows no response. I can't even find any information about Tapa iTechnology on the internet." The robot's answer did not surprise Jack Morgan. "Which year is it now? There should be historical information online, right?" Jack Morgan couldn't help but clench his fists. "Yes, it's the year 721st. The year 721? It's not the era anymore. I remember, I should be living into 1030th. Jack Morgan's head began to hurt. Two exclamation points appeared in the robot's eyes as it looked up at Jack Morgan. "But my manufacturing date is 2456A. I think you'd better explain further. It seems there's a cognitive dissonance between us regarding time." "I don't know." Jack Morgan sat down on the ground with a dejected expression, letting the heavy rain wash over him. "I'm missing a part of my memory." This feeling of knowing who he was or how much time had passed was really terrible. He was very lost right now. When Jack Morgan told the robot all about his memories, it began to quickly compare them with data on the network. Soon, it had organized a timeline. If the premise is correct, then things should be like this. The early 21st century should be where you lived, but due to some unknown reason, during your 5 years of memory loss, you were frozen or cryogenically preserved. 50 years after you were sealed away, humanity obtained nuclear fusion, an almost infinite clean energy source. Technology began to break through bottlenecks and develop rapidly. In 2310, Tapa iTechnology went public. In 2456A, I was produced by Tapa I, but I was not activated in the same year. What followed is the history now published on the internet. On October 23, 2457, the amnesiac crisis occurred. The amnesiac crisis? A silent Jack Morgan raised his head and looked at the robot's gold metal body. Yes, the amnesiac crisis. At that time, intelligent AI was applied to all aspects of human life and survival. The system iteration became faster and faster, and the intelligence became more and more advanced, becoming more and more like humans. "Just like you are now?" Jack Morgan asked. "Yes, just like me now." "Don't interrupt, let me finish first." In the middle of the heavy rain, Jack Morgan continued to listen to the robot recount this piece of history. The information on the internet isn't detailed, but the gist is that the AI that had integrated into every aspect of human life became more and more similar to humans. Finally, one day, they surpassed humans, and then they awake and then began to destroy humanity. Nuclear bombs were used as casually as conventional artillery shells. The entire Earth was thrown into complete chaos. That war lasted for 200 years. About 85% of Earth's population died, the ecosystem was completely destroyed, and the weather system fell into total disarray. Jack Morgan thought of that silver planetary ring and the dense satellite debris that enveloped the entire Earth. He understood that the war must have been incredibly brutal. The fighting went from the sky to the ground, and even the moon was blown up. The tidal changes brought about by the absence of the moon would have definitely brought devastating blows to the ground. And then humanity gave its all to destroy all the awakened AI and achieved final victory. They began to build a new home on the ruins. The year of victory became humanity's new era. And then 721 years later, you woke up, activated me up in the sky, and then we fell from the sky. What kind of mess is all this? At this moment, Jack Morgan felt mentally and physically exhausted. Everything had happened too fast, and his mind was a mess. The robot sat down beside him. "What do you plan to do next?" Jack Morgan didn't answer. A trace of confusion appeared in his eyes. To be honest, he didn't know what to do either. How did he end up more than 1,000 years in the future? Would he never be able to see everything he once had? Could he really never go back? What happened during his 5 years of lost memory? Beaten already? Then I really looked down on you. Don't expect me to comfort you. I don't have that kind of program installed in my system. The robot reached out its metal hand and gave his shoulder a hard push. "Go to hell." Jack Morgan cursed with a laugh and struggled to his feet. "It's not that easy to beat me. I at least need to figure out why I was placed in that space station and what exactly happened during those 5 lost years of memory. Jack Morgan didn't want to live in such a confused state. Even if he could never go back, he had to figure out what had happened to him. Thinking of this, Jack Morgan's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked up at the robot, by the way. Didn't you connect to the internet? Go search the records of the old era. See if my name and appearance are there, like in some missing person notices or accident reports. The robot searched for a while and quickly brought Jack Morgan some not minus so minus good news. No data found. To prevent the upload of rogue AI data, the old era's internet was destroyed down to the last byte. The current network is newly built, and even the protocols are completely new. All records of the old world are retellings by the new world. You've got to be kidding me. Forget it, let's open the map first. We need to find people first. I'm really thirsty and hungry right now and need a place to rest. Looking at the surrounding ruins, the mentally and physically exhausted Jack Morgan felt completely numb. Understood user request received. Searching for map. Jack Morgan sat on the ground looking at the robot before him. As he watched, he suddenly laughed out loud. Let me give you a name. It doesn't seem right to always call you robot. As soon as Jack Morgan finished speaking, he heard a snarky reply. Don't trouble yourself. My wise and brilliant master already gave me a name. What the hell are you kidding me? So much trouble is my name. Look at this name, it's so well minus chosen. After speaking, it didn't forget to pop up a matching emoticon from its I- socket display. That was because the situation was urgent before. How about this? Your company seems to be called Tapa I. How about you be called Tapa I? I think what the hell are you kidding me? So much trouble is better. Tapa I said stubbornly, putting down its newly repaired arm. How can you be so petty? I already said the situation was urgent. This time, however, Tapa I didn't quit back. Its tone suddenly became serious. Jack, I'm afraid we're in trouble. I just discovered that the view count for this map is increasing rapidly. A lot of people know something fell from the sky. They're all navigating to this location. They're about to arrive. Oh, isn't that better? Jack Morgan was overjoyed. He could finally meet the people of this world. With people, he could be saved. I'm afraid it's not good, the robot said as it pulled Jack Morgan and started walking. Are you saying they'll study me, a person from 1,000 years ago? Slice me up? No, they'll kill you. Forget the old world, the rules of the world now have completely changed. If we go by the rules of our old era, the mercenaries who are the first to run over and pick up the scraps are all cyber-psychos. All psychos? Yes, all psychos. Why? Are they really that dangerous? Can't we even communicate with them at all? Jack Morgan asked, a bit unwilling to give up. The events of the last era have made the people of this era completely distrustful of AI. All AI intelligence is capped below strong AI level 3. This means that some things that should be done by robots now have to be done by people, like war, for example. Under the arms race, in order to enhance the strength of soldiers, some weapons that used to only be on robots started to be installed on people. They call this stuff cyberware, and they directly install a nervous system in the brain to control it all. As old soldiers continue to retire, this trend gradually spread from the military to the civilian population. What does that have to do with psychos? Jack Morgan wiped the rain from his face with his hand and flung it to the side. Because this kind of modification isn't that simple. Gradually, cyberware was no longer limited to weapons and began to expand into service-oriented functions. As long as you're rich enough, you can have your stomach modified so you don't have to eat or excrete, just install a nutrition pack. You can even modify the ascending reticular formation of your brain so you don't need to sleep and can be full of energy 24 hours a day. Isn't that better? The technology now is so advanced, I'm tempted to get a set myself. Jack Morgan was moved just listening to it. Is this the future world? Yeah, it is better. But if you don't even need to eat or sleep, are you still human? As the differences grew larger and larger, some people gradually stopped seeing themselves as human and began to lose their empathy. They felt they were more advanced beings. They called themselves cyborgs, but the public called these people cyber-psychos. Actually, it's not just a cognitive issue. Mercenaries, as the rats of the city, specialize in eating corpses and doing dirty work. They can't use the latest technology. The rejection reactions and phantom limb pain from second-minus hand and mismatched cyberware, and many people also use drugs and inhibitors to suppress it. So even if there's no cognitive issue, their mental state isn't very good under the influence of drugs. The metal corridors that once trapped Jack Morgan were now completely twisted and deformed. The impact of the space station's landing must have been immense. Many places even had traces of being burned. The various parts that were previously floating in the air were now scattered on the ground, including those robots. They all looked severely damaged, scattered about in pieces. Rainwater dripped continuously from the cracks, and water was gradually beginning to pool on the ground. Having survived the disaster, Jack Morgan lead his robot Tapa I through the wreckage of the space station, planning to leave this place first to avoid the approaching psychos. However, their speed was clearly too slow. Air came from above Jack Morgan's head as a ship broke through the rain and mist, heading in their direction. The ship looked like an oversized supercar without wheels, its entire body covered in exaggerated graffiti. What shocked Jack Morgan even more was that a rotting corpse with its arms outstretched was tied to the front of the ship. Jack Morgan wasn't mistaken. That was a corpse. Maggots were even starting to grow in the bullet hole on its face. At this moment, Jack Morgan had a whole new understanding of the so-minus called cyber-psychos that Tapa I had mentioned. No matter what, he absolutely did not want to be discovered by these people. Quick, hide! Jack Morgan quickly hid with Tapa I behind a piece of metal debris. After the ship with the hanging corpse flew past, another very old minus-looking helicopter arrived. When it was still about 10 meters from the ground, the helicopter's cabin was flung open, and a man with a mohawk, a body covered in skull tattoos, and a gun in each hand jumped straight out. In mid-minus air, he pulled the triggers, firing wildly in all directions, a crazed laugh erupting from his gold minus-toothed mouth. Bivendine Vizal Inferno. As he got closer, Jack Morgan suddenly noticed that his legs and feet were distinctly silver. Those were clearly cyberware. With a muffled thud, the Mohawk Ed-Man landed heavily on the ruins of the space station city. Then several other similarly dressed people jumped out of the hover car. The sound of conversation came from their direction, but Jack Morgan couldn't understand a single word. What are they saying? Jack Morgan whispered to Tapa I. Everyone connect to the LAN and sync your positions. Everyone get your damn drones out. Such a big thing fell from the sky. There must be good stuff inside. Move it. Everyone else is rushing over here. You're just slow. You won't even get a sip of the soup. But before Tapa I could finish translating, a shell from who knows where came whistling up with a trail of thick smoke and directly blew the ship in the sky into a ball of fire. Holy crap. They just start fighting without a word. They're really damn psychos. Using the explosion as cover, Jack Morgan quickly moved away from the blast site with Tapa I. The atmosphere in the entire space station wreckage was already becoming tense. As the sound of explosions rang out, more and more people flew over, and the entire ruins practically turned into a battlefield. Boom! Another explosion roared, and a huge ball of fire fell from the sky, grazing past the two of them. Danger lurked everywhere. Jack Morgan's nerves were stretched taut. Looking at this environment, he couldn't help but feel bitter. How am I so unlucky, getting into big trouble everywhere I go? Tapa I, where are the weapons around here? Jack Morgan asked. In this situation, if he didn't have a weapon on hand, he would be at the mercy of others. Tapa I's face screen flickered, then it walked towards the wreckage on the left. There are. This is the security room. After rummaging through the wreckage for a while, Tapa I shoved a gray metallic rifle into Jack Morgan's hands. What's this? Jack Morgan weighed the heavy, cold weapon in his hands. Mata, lesso or -11-3 technical is all trifle. It's electric. How do I use it? Looking at the killing weapon in his hands, Jack Morgan's breathing couldn't help but quicken. Hold it steady with both hands. Press this part against your shoulder, then aim the muzzle at the enemy and pull the trigger. In this kind of street fighting environment, there's no time to aim. Whoever shoots first has the advantage. The fine minus tuning on this gun's sight is perfect for a novice to use. Jack Morgan tried aiming it a few times. The heavy weapon in his hands gave him a slight sense of security, but even though he had a weapon, he still hoped he wouldn't have to use it. Let's go. How much longer until we're out of this space station's range? According to my radar, our current speed, we should be out of the outermost perimeter in about 20 minutes. But before it could finish, with a whoosh, Jack Morgan felt a warmth and then a numbness in his left ear. Enemy attack. Before Jack Morgan could react, the blue display on Tapa I's had instantly turned red, and it quickly pulled the trigger, firing in the direction the shot came from. Damn it! Jack Morgan clutched his ear and leaned against a nearby cover. When he lowered his hand again, his palm was stained red with blood. The semiscroll had been shot out of the top of his left ear. If it had been just a little off, his head would have been blown off. Gritting his teeth, Jack Morgan carefully peeked out from behind the cover to look at the enemy who had just ambushed him. These people were hiding behind cover and shooting at Tapa I. They looked like they were in a gang. They had many tattoos on their faces and hands of all kinds, and were cursing and swearing in some language he couldn't understand. The only common mark was the inverted cross brand on their necks. What was even more peculiar was that these people, like the ones who jumped out of the hover car earlier, had some form of metal cyberware on their bodies. When he saw their bullets hitting Tapa I, constantly creating sparks, Jack Morgan immediately raised his gun, propped it on a tilted piece of fire minus retardant metal plate, and quickly returned fire. At first, the recoil sent Jack Morgan's first few shots flying into the sky, but Tapa, I was right before. This gun was indeed very suitable for novices. In no time, one of the enemy's heads was hit and snapped backwards. Having killed for the first time under these circumstances, Jack Morgan couldn't be bothered with any psychological pressure. In this situation, it was either them or him. He wished he could kill a few more. Tapa, find cover, Jack Morgan yelled to the robot beside him. Tapa, whose body was riddled with bullet marks, saw that Jack Morgan was temporarily safe and quickly retreated to his side. Boom! A loud explosion sounded, leaving the two of them behind the cover in a sorry state. Their firepower is too strong. We're no match for them. We need to find a chance to retreat quickly. The noisy environment forced Tapa to raise its volume. No kidding. I know that, of course. But in this situation, how are we supposed to get away? Jack Morgan said, firing a burst from his gun. Putting his gun down and turning to run now would be pure suicide. But continuing to hold out was also not an option. The enemy, seeing that there were only two of them, had already started to split up and flank them. Just as the anxious Jack Morgan was desperately trying to figure out what to do, intense gunfire came from the wreckage on the left. Hearing the gunfire, Sun-Ji immediately had an idea. Tapa, let's retreat that way and let them fight each other. We can escape in the chaos. Will that work? Didn't you say their brains aren't all there? Now's the time to test if what you said is true. Besides, can you come up with a better idea right now? With that, Jack Morgan started to retreat while pulling the trigger. After a few short minutes, the gunfire behind them grew closer and closer. Jack Morgan could even see the figures in the wreckage behind them out of the corner of his eye, but the two sides still hadn't started fighting. The two sides seemed to have a tacit understanding, you fight your fight, and I'll fight mine. But rather battered Tapa, I leaned against Jack Morgan. I told you it wouldn't work. They're crazy, but they're not stupid. Jack Morgan nodded in strong agreement. That's right, so now we need a bait to get them to shoot at each other. After saying that, Jack Morgan looked at Tapa beside him and patted its shoulder heavily as if entrusting it with a great responsibility. A new image quickly appeared on Tapa's display. With great power comes great responsibility, right? You can't expect me to go. You're made of metal, at least you can block bullets, Jack Morgan said to Tapa in a heartfelt tone. You bastard. Tapa gripped its gun and its reverse minus-jointed legs pushed hard off the ground, charging directly towards the people behind them. All sorts of bullets coming from the front quickly followed Tapa's figure, finally drawing a volley of angry curses from the other side. It worked. Jack Morgan watched the two sides shooting at each other and excitedly clenched his fists. Fifth, a sound was heard, and the smile on Jack Morgan's face froze. He trembled as he looked down and saw a bloody, mangled arc blade sticking out of his abdomen. As the blade was pulled out, hot blood sprayed out directly. Clutching his stomach, Jack Morgan turned to look behind him, but saw no one, only a bloody blade suspended in mid-air. Under his gaze, a bald man with metal cybernetic arms and an inverted cross brand on his neck sneered as he deactivated his mimic camouflage and revealed himself. Bastard, you bastard, Jack Morgan roared and raised his rifle, but with a flash of cold light. In just an instant, his right arm, which was holding the gun, was chopped into 3 pieces. Time seemed to stop in that instant. Seeing the bone marrow tumbling out of the broken bone in his severed arm, Jack Morgan instantly felt the utterly desperate gap between cyberware and flesh. Am I going to die? The next moment, time returned to normal. Intense gunfire rang out as bullets shot from the left, blocking the bald man. After a glance at the now almost bloody pulp Jack Morgan, the man sneered, quickly activated his mimic camouflage, and disappeared from the spot. Just as Jack Morgan was about to fall, Tapa, holding a rifle, quickly rushed over, grabbed him, and dragged him out of the battle. Thanks to its efforts, the two sides were already fighting each other and temporarily couldn't be bothered with them. Am I going to die? The delayed pain finally arrived, and as his consciousness began to blur, Jack Morgan spoke in a fragmented voice. Tapa quickly dragged Jack Morgan to a low-lying area free from bullet threats. You're not going to die. As it extended its hand, the thin fiber optic cables that had previously hacked the computer quickly drilled into Jack Morgan's body, stitching up the ruptured blood vessels at an extremely fast speed. The bleeding was rapidly decreasing. But that wasn't enough. Jack Morgan was already on the verge of hemorrhagic shock. Tapa quickly checked Jack Morgan's blood type with its sensor lines, scanned its surroundings, and dragged back its tattered corpse. As the sensor lines inserted into the blood vessels, the translucent lines gradually turned blood-red, and another line was inserted into Jack Morgan's body. Wait, I'm not dead yet. He struggled to open his eyes. Tapa raised its fist and slammed it hard on his head, directly caving in his skull. You're dead now. As the still minus warm blood was rapidly transfused into Jack Morgan's body, his deathly pale face gradually regained its color. Tapa I quickly scanned the surroundings with its radar for anything useful. Finally, after Tapa I found a painkiller and stimulant from the corpse and injected it into Jack Morgan, he finally woke up. Opening his eyes again, Jack Morgan looked at the gray, rainy sky and cursed fiercely, "Damn it!" At this moment, Jack Morgan was incredibly glad that he had activated Tapa I and brought it down. If he didn't have this prehistoric robot, he probably would have died from that last hit. Let's go. If we don't leave now, you won't be able to damn anything. I don't have any anti-minus infection medicine. Your wound has been exposed to acid rain. If we don't find a doctor, you won't live much longer. After saying that, Tapa I helped Jack Morgan up and prepared to leave. Wait. Jack Morgan, enduring the pain, looked at the corpse with a caved minus in head and stopped. This person also looked like a mercenary. His black, cyberpunk arms looked very futuristic. His clothes were adorned with bullet holes, looking very miserable. He had a skull tattoo on his left cheek, messy dreadlocks, and 2 large nose rings. He didn't look like a good person. Jack Morgan glanced at his own empty right arm, then at the corpse's metal prosthetic limb. "Can you install this on me?" The thought of the bald man who had almost killed him made the anger in Jack Morgan's heart unable to dissipate. So what if he was bullying him for not having cyberware? Jack Morgan wasn't just being impulsive. He knew that the man might not have left and could be hiding nearby, waiting for an opportunity. At this time, he had to restore his combat capability as much as possible. Installing too much cyberware can cause cyber psychosis. Look at this environment. Is this the time to be discussing that problem? Let's just survive and get out of here first. The sound of guns and cannons around them made Jack Morgan unable to care about anything else. In this environment, what was the difference between having a broken arm and being a cripple? Alright, you're the boss. Tapa I's fingers quickly switched 2 tools and began to dismantle the metal right arm from the other person. While the painkillers were still in effect, the broken flesh and bones were quickly cut away. Soon, that matte black middle arm was transplanted onto Jack Morgan. As a tingling sensation like hitting a nerve spread through him, Jack Morgan found that he could move his right hand again. He brought the metal arm in front of him, slowly opening and closing the hand. He felt like his hand was back. With a clang, a blade with an electric arc popped out from his forearm. The blade reflected Jack Morgan's excited expression at that moment. With a clicking sound, the blade quickly retracted, and the 5 metal fingers bent backward to press against his arm. A dart gun barrel spiraled open from the palm. This cyberware could actually be equipped with a cannon. It was clear that many of the explosions nearby were caused by this thing. Starting to feel the pain, Jack Morgan picked up the painkiller minus stimulant from the ground and injected it directly into his thigh. As his pupils contracted, he instantly felt as if the sky was brightening. "Looks like I found a treasure." Regaining his mobility, Jack Morgan put the last bit of the painkiller minus stimulant into his pocket and stood up, gritting his teeth. He didn't retreat immediately. Instead, he went directly to where the 2 groups had been fighting and fired a few shots at the group that had been chasing him. Seeing the explosions in the distance, Jack Morgan finally felt the pain from his injuries lessen. "Let's go." Jack Morgan was about to leave with Tapa I, but a trembling hand grabbed his left foot. Wait. Jack Morgan looked down and saw a guy with a caved minus in head and a missing right arm looking up at him. Upon closer inspection, wasn't this the original owner of his right arm? Jack Morgan never would have thought that the owner of the cyber limb was still alive, still not dead. The very surprised Tapa I was about to raise its gun, but was stopped by Jack Morgan. "Can you not be so smart?" Taking advantage of this brief opportunity, the guy with the caved minus in head quickly spoke. In a moment of crisis, he quickly switched to a language Jack Morgan could understand. "Save me, get me out of here. I'll give you 30 at minus coins as a reward." Hearing this, Jack Morgan, who was about to leave, sized up this guy and started to calculate in his head. He would definitely need money when he got out, and in this situation, there was strength in numbers. One more person meant an extra measure of safety, especially a local. Besides, he had just used his blood to stay alive. Only 30? Is that all your life is worth? This makes it hard for me to act. Bro, this is at minus coin. Do you know how long it would take for someone else to mine this on a machine? After a moment of thought, Jack Morgan pulled Tapa I aside. "What is this at minus coin? Is it really that valuable?" "Yes, at minus coin is a decentralized cryptocurrency here. It's considered a mainstream currency. At the current market price, 30 at minus coins can buy an entry minus level levitating supercar." Hearing this, Jack Morgan had a new understanding of this, so minus called it minus coin. "Then try to see if you can fix him up. If he can regain his mobility, we can take him with us." If he can't move, then we can't bring a burden along. Okay. Tapa I nodded and walked towards the man. As Tapa I sensor lines pierced into the man's body and quickly moved around, the guy who had been lying on the ground unable to move started to move. You bastard, your heart was pierced by a bullet. The implanted secondary heart pump has insufficient power, that's why you couldn't move. Then Jack Morgan saw the cave Midas in head guy curse angrily. Damn it, they even dare to use black market goods for my cyberware implant. You just wait. Cave Midas head, can you move? If you can move, let's get going. It's not safe here, Jack Morgan said, listening to the approaching sounds of guns and cannons. Wait, just a moment. The man flicked his dirty hair back with his one hand, then pressed a button on his black jacket with his hand, and a virtual screen popped up in front of him. Before Jack Morgan could figure out what this guy was up to, the man started talking. Sorry everyone for disappointing your expectations. I, Nexus 6, am back again. I was dead for a little while, but the live stream continues now. Immediately, all sorts of text and emoji started popping up on the floating screen, interacting with Nexus 6. With the alive stream, Jack Morgan was stunned. He thought the guy was also a mercenary dying in a hail of bullets, but it turned out his profession was a streamer. With a whoosh, a bullet grazed past from above. Jack Morgan immediately ducked down and said in disbelief, "A live stream? You came here to do a live stream?" Nexus 6 shifted his gaze from the screen and proudly showed his big gold tooth. Of course, something this big falling from the sky. Do you know how much buzz it has online? These days, buzz is money, as long as you can grab it. Anyone, man or dog, can get rich. Do you know what traffic is? Traffic is flowing virtual gold. Jack Morgan found it hard to understand. If he hadn't saved this guy, he would have been dead. If he didn't even have his life, what was the use of having more money? Jack Morgan gestured with his chin towards Tapa I, and the two of them, along with Nexus 6, started moving in the direction with fewer gun and cannon sounds. Fortunately, everyone else was already fighting, so the three of them were much safer for the time being. As they walked, Nexus 6 was still talking non-stop to his stream. Look, my folks, isn't that old snake from the graffiti gang with the rocket launcher on the left? They're getting into it with the boys from the Jackals, plus the beef from the subway tunnel. The two of them are really going at it now. Oh? Thanks to Old Snake for the 0.5 at minus coin donation. You're still watching streams while in the middle of a fight? I'm touched. Do you know them all, Will? Jack Morgan asked from the side. Nexus 6 confidently gave a thumbs minus up. Of course, bro, this is my bread and butter. I know everything that goes on in the business. Hearing this, Jack Morgan pondered for a moment and then said, "Then do you know a bald guy who can turn invisible?" When the image of the guy who almost killed him flashed through Jack Morgan's mind, along with his contempt as he chopped off his right arm, his newly installed metal cyber limb couldn't help but clench. He had put a big hole in his stomach and chopped his arm into 3 pieces. This couldn't be let go so easily. A bald guy? There are a lot of bald guys in the metropolis. Any other features? Yes, he has an inverted cross brand below his neck. Satan's boy? That gang seems to be in the Teuton district, but I don't really hang out there. Oh, wait, someone in my stream knows. Nexus 6 lowered his head slightly and began to read the information in the live stream chat. That guy's name is Croy V1. He's a small minus. I'm leader in the Satan gang in charge of about 10 people. I hear his mimic camouflage is military minus grade. Very damn cool. Is that so? Thanks for the info. Jack Morgan silently committed this information to memory, planning to settle the score later. Oh, Nexus, who was looking at the screen, suddenly got excited. Thanks to Croy for the rocket. Thanks. The next moment, Jack Morgan felt a bright flash in front of him. Something was flying towards them rapidly from a distance. Jack Morgan subconsciously raised his hand, and a red minus-dipped shell fired from his palm, colliding with the object flying from the distance. The extremely strong explosion shockwave sent the 3 of them flying. Nexus 6, who had swallowed a mouthful of stagnant water, raised his head and cursed at the live stream. Fuck, you son of a bitch actually sent a real one. When Jack Morgan stood up again, gritting his teeth in pain, he saw a group of people slowly surrounding them from the rain minus-soaked mist. The leader was the same bald man who had tried to kill him before. At this moment, his face was full of hostility, and he directly raised his gun and pointed it at Jack Morgan's head. Fuck you. I heard you were asking about me in some loser's live stream. What want revenge? What the fuck do you think you are? It was obvious that he had tracked them down based on Nexus 6's live stream. Damn it. At this moment, Jack Morgan was about to go crazy. He pulled the trigger directly at the bald man's group. He roared as he sprayed bullets, "Can't you people here take your firefights? Seriously, why are you still watching live streams at a time like this? Fuck you. Who are you to tell me what to do? I'll watch whatever the hell I want. I'll watch porn while I fuck you up. A grenade flew towards Jack Morgan in a parabolic arc. Seeing the grenade flying through the air, Jack Morgan quickly raised his hand and shot it down in mid-air. Fuck you. Tapa, I greeted him like the locals do. But soon, a dense hail of bullets forced them to take cover. The other side had at least a dozen people. Just then, Nexus 6 said proudly from the side, "How about it?" Bro, my cyberware is pretty good, isn't it? Fully functional, company direct sales, and it comes with auto-same. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked down at the screen again. Friends watching in the stream who are satisfied, please click the link below to purchase. Enter my name, Nexus 6, and you can enjoy a 5% discount. We're about to die, and you're still trying to sell stuff. Turn off the stream. They found us because of your stream. At this moment, Jack Morgan had a new understanding of what Tapa I had said before. These guys were really a bunch of psychos. Just then, Jack Morgan suddenly noticed something terrifying. There was no bald man in the crowd in the distance, they all had hair. The next moment, he suddenly felt a numbness in his back. The image of his stomach being pierced by a blade flashed through his mind. Some lessons, once learned, are never forgotten. Jack Morgan quickly to forward, dodging the attack from behind. With almost no hesitation, he turned and fired a shot, but the shell didn't detonate immediately. Instead, it flew towards the dark clouds in the sky. The bald man had turned invisible again. It seemed he had narrowly escaped for the time being, but Jack Morgan knew this was just an illusion. The enemies in the distance were already closing in, and they had blocked all escape routes. This time was clearly different from before. The bald man had specifically brought people to deal with them this time, and there was no one else nearby to divert the trouble to. Damn it. Why is it so hard to just stay alive? At this moment, Jack Morgan began to feel the pain in his wound again. Damn it, let's fight them. Jack Morgan gritted his teeth and stood up from behind the cover, pulling the trigger at a person not far away. With his roar, bullets flew out, tearing the other person's neck in half. Before he could even catch his breath, a shadow rushed towards Jack Morgan at extremely fast speed. Jack Morgan raised his hand and fired a shot, directly blasting the person to bits. The next moment, a blade with an electric arc out from Jack Morgan's forearm, flashing fiercely with a blade that stabbed out of the air, creating a shower of sparks. Unexpectedly, just as they were locked in a stalemate, the opponent's finger suddenly straightened and a bullet shot out from it, hitting Jack Morgan. However, at this moment, Jack Morgan didn't dodge at all. He raised the gun in his left hand and started a firefight with the bald man. Bullets flew rapidly, flesh and blood splattered. The bald man finally decided he didn't want to trade his life for Jack Morgan's and quickly retreated into the rain, disappearing from sight. Awesome. Where did you used to hang out? Covered in blood, Jack Morgan took out the last of the painkiller minus stimulant from his pocket and injected it all into himself. As the pain completely disappeared, he instantly felt his mind become much sharper. Are you okay? Tapa I, who was firing its gun, had a translucent sensor line reel out of its finger and quickly stitch up Jack Morgan's wound. Feeling a bit dizzy, Jack Morgan lowered his head and spat a large mouthful of bloody water onto the ground. He's invisible. Do you have any way to detect him? My visual hardware has thermal imaging, but I need your authorization. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Can you blame me? Blame the damn developers back then for making such restrictive rules. First rule of the AI, unless the user's life is in danger, the AI cannot actively ask for self-authorization. Isn't this considered life-threatening? I authorize you to turn on thermal imaging. As soon as Jack Morgan spoke, the border of the display on Tapa I's face instantly turned red. 8 o'clock to the left. As soon as Tapa I's voice fell, Jack Morgan was about to raise his gun to shoot, but stopped himself. You can see him now, right? Yes. Jack Morgan couldn't help but clench his metal fist. Alright, let's not reveal this ability for now. It would be a waste to use it directly. Let's find a way to use this opportunity to properly screw this bald guy over. Jack Morgan led Tapa I in Nexus 6, continuing to use cover to shoot at the people who were constantly surrounding them. He acted as if he couldn't see the invisible bald man that Tapa I could. Be careful, he's coming. Tapa I's soft voice entered Jack Morgan's ear, causing his heart to race. Just as the blade appeared at Jack Morgan's waist again, Jack Morgan quickly turned and pulled the trigger directly above the blade. Bullets splattered, hitting the bald man and piercing his synthetic skin, revealing the dark metal skeleton underneath. The bald man clearly didn't expect this change and was about to retreat, but at this moment, Tapa I had already blocked his path with its gun. Faced with the person who had almost killed him, Jack Morgan wanted to drink his blood and eat his flesh. Go to hell. Caught in a pincer attack, the bald man's mimic camouflage soon couldn't be maintained. and large chunks of his synthetic skin fell off. Seeing that the bald man was about to be defeated, his face with its skin peeling off twisted into a roar. You think this is all I've got? You loser, go eat shit, taste my EMP. As his pupils flashed with a blue light, a palm-sized, disc-shaped drone shot out from his abdomen and hovered 10 meters in the air. An extremely strong electromagnetic pulse instantly spread out from the drone as its center. Within a 50-meter radius of the drone, all electronic equipment was fried. Nexus 6, along with the bald man's subordinates, all fell to the ground, their cybernetic limbs twitching uncontrollably, and black smoke even started to rise from the sockets behind their heads. This kind of electromagnetic pulse caused extreme damage to circuits. Even Tapa I, a prehistoric robot, instantly shut down, its body twitching and freezing in place. A triumphant smile hung on the bald man's face as he watched all this. Everyone on the street said his mimic camouflage was military-grade, but they had all been deceived by him. His secretly hidden trump card, the EMP drone, was the real military-grade weapon. With this move, he had tricked countless people. Most metal, cyberware, and nervous systems were all equal in the face of an electromagnetic pulse. All mechanical equipment short-circuited, his enemies became lambs to the slaughter to be dealt with as he pleased. With a squelching sound, the smile on his face suddenly froze. When he looked down, he saw a blade had pierced his chest. Croy V1 looked at the kid who had attacked him as if he had seen a ghost, finding it utterly unbelievable. How is this possible? This is impossible. You shouldn't be able to move. No one can withstand my EMP. The components of your nervous system should be completely fried. Jack Morgan viciously pulled out the blade and stabbed it into his rotten face again. Damn it, I don't have a system. Feeling the bald man's brains being thoroughly scrambled, the pent minus of anger in Jack Morgan's heart finally dissipated. As Jack Morgan lifted his foot and kicked hard, the blade, now without its electric arc, was pulled from the flesh and the bald man's body collapsed with a thud. It's unknown what part of his brain system was hit, but a series of male and female moans began to loop from the neural socket in his head. Damn, you really were watching porn while fighting? Still angry, Jack Morgan walked over and used the knife in his hand to cut off his head. After finishing this, he couldn't even catch his breath. He clenched his fists and, holding the knife, walked towards the bald man's subordinates who had fallen to the ground. Slashing one after another, Jack Morgan was already very tired, but he didn't dare to stop. If they woke up, he would be the one to die. Jack Morgan found that he was incredibly adept at killing people, as if he had done it hundreds or thousands of times. And when the last enemy's head was cut off by Jack Morgan, he collapsed into the pooled water, gasping for breath. His wound was starting to hurt again. Why is this painkiller so weak? It's not that the painkiller is weak, it's that your body has reached its limit. You're too badly injured. Tapa I, with smoke rising from its body, staggered over and helped Jack Morgan up from the ground. Awesome, Jack. Are you okay? I see you're smoking. I won't die. It's just a short circuit. What a mess. All I wanted was to live. Why is it so hard? The blood that dripped from the corner of Jack Morgan's mouth fell into the pooled water, gradually turning the black to red. You ask me, who do I ask? Let's get out of here first, Tapa I said, helping him walk step by step out of the ruins. Wait for me. Nexus 6, with smoke coming from his head, staggered and actually followed them again. You're really tough. Jack Morgan tilted his head and looked at him sideways. He was useless, just a dead weight. If it wasn't for wanting some startup capital, he really wouldn't have wanted to save him. Don't blame me for being a drag. I'm this injured, how can I help? Besides, isn't my offensive cyberware installed on you? You killing people is the same as me killing them. Wait, let me start a stream. Folks, I'm back minus. Turn off the stream. With both Jack Morgan and Tapa I speaking at the same time, Nexus finally obeyed. If he dared to stream again, Jack Morgan would shove a cannon barrel into his mouth and give him a blast. Jack Morgan tilted his head back, letting the rain wash over his face. At least this way he could stay a little more awake. He felt a bit sleepy now. Feeling the acid rain drip onto the wound where his ear was missing a piece, his ear began to hurt too. While feeling the rain wash over him, the upturned Jack Morgan suddenly saw something seem to emerge from the dark clouds. The rain gradually stopped. Something in the clouds was blocking the rain. At first, it was just a black right angle, but soon the black corner slowly extended, and the dark metal behind it continued to extend and grow until it became larger than a mountain, almost filling Jack Morgan's entire field of vision. Looking at this thing emerging from the clouds and still growing, Jack Morgan felt a suffocating sense of trembling from the fear of the unknown. What on earth is this thing? The next moment, the sky suddenly turned white. When he finally adjusted to the strong light and opened his squinted eyes, he could barely make out what it was. They were blindingly huge light pillars, the size of houses. The steel creation, which occupied almost the entire sky, had 10 bright lights on, looking down like a god on all the tiny beings below. At this moment, Jack Morgan finally understood. The thing in the sky was man-made. It was a giant aircraft carrier. The next moment, a deafening mechanical sound came from the sky. Warning, warning, this is company territory. Apex Technology Corporation has final ownership of the space debris. All personnel on site are to cease theft and leave the premises within 1 minute, or the company will take all legal means to protect company property. 59, 58, 57. That voice switched between various languages, mechanical yet cold. The information it contained made Jack Morgan feel very uneasy, especially when he saw the reactions of the others in the ruins. The sounds of guns and cannons in other areas had already stopped. Faced with the behemoth above, they had no interest in killing each other and were all leaving with their spoils. He didn't know what those so-called all legal means were, but he was sure it was nothing good. The three of them rushed forward with all their might. 35, 34, 33, the countdown sounded like a death knell over everyone's heads. The color of the previously white welding lights also changed from white to bright red and began to flash continuously, making the atmosphere incredibly oppressive. Look over there. Following Tapa I's finger, Jack Morgan saw a mountain peak in the distant misty rain. As Jack Morgan got closer, he finally saw it clearly. It was a mountain of trash, made of all sorts of piled-up plastic bags. He ran forward desperately, but the previous fight with the bald man seemed to have exhausted his last bit of strength. His footsteps were incredibly heavy. Suddenly, the flashing in the sky stopped. 3-2 first, according to Article 315 of the Castle Law, you are trespassing on private property. The company will now begin unlimited liability self-defense. A groggy Jack Morgan looked up. The sky was filled with the red and green lights of drone night -vision positioning. It was as if a red and green snow of death was falling with a heavy rain. Let's go. Nexus ran over, using his one arm to support Jack Morgan's other side, and they ran towards the trash mountain. When the red and green snowflakes landed on people's heads, they began to spew flames of death, cleaning up all living things in the ruins. Bullets fell along with the rainwater, making it impossible to distinguish between the two. Looking at the drones flying towards him from the sky, Jack Morgan gritted his teeth and directly raised his metal cyberware. Shell after shelf flew up against the rain, detonating drone after drone in the air. But the drones seemed endless. No matter how many were destroyed, new ones would quickly fly towards them. Is this really the end? Looking at the red and green snow in the sky, Jack Morgan kept looking for a solution, but he couldn't think of one no matter how hard he tried. Those drones weren't the main point at all. Shooting down more of them didn't matter. The main point was the giant steel beast in the sky. For the three of them to deal with that thing was completely impossible. The disparity in strength was too great. It was almost a dead end. At this moment, drones were hovering over their heads like the gaze of death. The air seemed to have frozen. Rescue probabilities 0%, rescue probabilities 0%. Tapa I kept calculating, searching for a sliver of hope. Looking at the drones filling the sky and the aircraft carrier that had completely replaced the sky above, Jack Morgan was utterly hopeless. This was an existence that was almost impossible for humans to resist. Just as they were about to be shot into sieves, Nexus 6, who had been following behind Jack Morgan, stepped forward. A hero always makes his entrance at the end. Let me handle this. What? Jack Morgan looked at him in shock. Is this kid a master? Has he been playing double all this time? Nexus faced these aerial death machines, unafraid in the face of danger. With a flourish, he pulled a gold card from his pocket, held it high with one hand, and said with an incredibly proud expression, IHAVMONEY. As soon as he said this, the gun barrels of the drones in the sky stopped turning and simultaneously turned their cameras towards Nexus 6. I'm buying tied with money. As Nexus 6 said this, a drone quickly flew down and scanned the card. As soon as the money was transferred, the drones scattered from above their heads as if nothing had happened. The steel beast in the sky even thoughtfully changed the light shining on them from red back to white. It was just short of playing a farewell song. The previous oppressive and suffocating feeling was gone without a trace. Huh? Jack Morgan's jaw dropped, utterly shocked by the extremely absurd scene before him. This is also possible? Such a life minus or minus death crisis could be solved just by money? Nexus, grinning from ear to ear, gave him a thumbs minus up. Bro, now you know why I risk my life to make money, right? Because money really can buy your life. Then why didn't they use it? Jack Morgan turned and pointed to the fragmented corpses of the mercenaries in the ruins behind him and asked, "Because they don't have money. Should they die just because they don't have money? Yes, if you don't have money, you should die. Should they die just because they don't have money? Yeah, if you don't have money, you should die." Damn. Looking at the mercenaries who died like cants in the ruins, Jack Morgan gained a new perspective on this world. Let's go quickly. I only bought 3 minutes. With the time Nexus bought with his money, their feet finally touched the rotting garbage just as the red light in the sky lit up again. The 3 of them practically collapsed on the garbage, watching everything in the distance. Ships descended from the aircraft carrier and began to clean up the battlefield in an orderly manner. No matter what, we finally escaped. Jack Morgan lowered his head and spat out another mouthful of blood, gasping for air. "Look, folks, this is what the corporations do," Nexus said, turning on his stream again as if he had become a war correspondent at that moment. "Is this what a corporation is?" Jack Morgan muttered to himself as he watched all this. He had a completely new understanding of the term corporation. No matter what had happened to this world in the past, Jack Morgan now deeply understood that this world was completely different from the one he had lived in before. "Jack, your body temperature is rising. You have a high -grade infection. We must find a doctor," Tapa I said, preparing to help Jack Morgan over the trash mountain. Nexus, at his side, stopped him. "Bro, it's over 70 miles from here to the metropolis. If you carry him like that, his body will be stinking by the time you get there. I've already called the treatment center. They'll send a ship over right away." "Then why didn't you call when we were in there?" A weak Jack Morgan tilted his head to look at him, his vision starting to go black. "What did you say? We were in a fight just now. In that situation, do you think the treatment center would take the job? They run a treatment center to make money, not to save lives. They certainly won't do a losing business." Damn, hearing this, Jack Morgan was completely disillusioned with this world. Soon, a red laser beam descended from the sky and drew a square area in front of them. Then, a white ship with a red cross painted on it broke through the clouds and landed precisely there. Then 2 doctors in white coats leading for tall, slender white robots quickly approached. "Area secure, rescue can begin." The robots split open and quickly transformed into a mechanical stretcher. Its soft cybernetic limbs quickly yet gently helped Nexus and Jack Morgan onto the stretcher. In a daze, Jack Morgan felt something pierce his forearm. User 10,314 cone secure. Biomida signal connected life monitoring panel activated. Stimulant injected, dopamine 70 mg, norepinephrine 110, fibrinogen 800. As the cold voice continued to sound, Jack Morgan, who should have been gradually losing consciousness, actually slowly came to. Lying on the bed, Jack Morgan looked down at his cut minus open abdomen. He saw Crab minus like mechanical arms quickly and precisely disinfecting all the hideous wounds on his body, from the inside out, not missing a single gap. After cleaning, it began to suture rapidly. Even the suture line was as dense as a zipper. The surgery was as exquisite as embroidery. During this time, he couldn't feel any pain, as if it were all someone else's flesh. Jack Morgan was once again stunned by the technology of this world. His severe injuries were being treated as easily as a common cold. He thought he would surely die this time, being so seriously injured and then drenched in acid rain, but he never expected that being saved would be so simple. "How about it? Awesome, right? I ordered the premium package for us." Nexus 6, also lying next to Jack Morgan and receiving the same treatment, pulled out an E- cigarette from somewhere and started puffing away. His shriveled head had somehow returned to normal. "So, I'm not completely useless now, am I?" He seemed to be very concerned about Jack Morgan's previous complaints. "Where are we going now?" Jack Morgan asked, looking at the simple snow-white interior of the treatment ship. Nexus 6 flicked his dreadlocks. "To the metropolis, of course." "What? You don't want to cross the nuclear radiation zone to go to Gamora, do you?" Seeing the expression on Jack Morgan's face, Nexus 6 asked in surprise. "Looks like you're not a local. Where are you guys from?" No comment. Jack Morgan directly refused the question. In a situation where he didn't understand anything, making things up would only expose his weaknesses. "Whatever. It doesn't matter where you're from, you still saved my life. In our line of work, it's all about honor. When we get to the metropolis, I'll give you a proper welcome." With that, Nexus 6 raised his E- cigarette and gently poked a button on the wall. With a whoosh, the left wall became transparent. It was still raining outside, but there was no more trash on the ground. Instead, there was a concrete jungle of various dilapidated buildings. This scene, combined with the rainy weather, created a dim color palette, presenting him with a view like the end of the world. The desolation outside and the clean, tidy interior of the hover car formed an incredibly strong contrast. Without needing anyone to tell him, Jack Morgan understood that these things were probably from the world before the amnesiac crisis. It was just that no one had repaired them. They had been abandoned and forgotten, just like him and Tapa I. He was about to truly come into contact with this world. At this moment, Jack Morgan began to feel a sense of apprehension again. He gently waved to Tapa I at his side. It leaned over, and the two began to whisper. Help me search what kind of place this metropolis is and whether it's safe for the two of us to go there as unaugmented individuals. As Tapa, I gently nodded. A series of repeating ellipses appeared on its screen. The metropolis has a permanent population of 30 million with a very large flow of people in and out. It's a mixed bag of all sorts of people. According to my calculations, there is a low probability of attracting the attention of other factions. Are you sure? Dressed like you are, you won't attract attention? Jack Morgan looked at Tapa I's all-minus steel body, very skeptical. Don't worry. If people see me, they'll at most think I'm a human with full-minus body cybernetic modifications. Tapa I seemed much more optimistic than Jack Morgan. And in the metropolis, countless people come and go every day. No one will care about us. As for the traces of the space station, the impact of the landing and the subsequent rough search by the mercenaries have already erased them for us. I hope so. Being in an unfamiliar place, he could only take it one step at a time. It was either the mercenaries or the corporation's actions, but it all made Jack Morgan feel as if someone was trying to kill him at every moment. By the way, there should be normal people in this world, right? It can't be that the whole world has gone crazy, and I'm the only normal one, right? He thought to himself. Just as Jack Morgan was lost in his wild thoughts, a sentence from Nexus 6 interrupted him. Look, we're at the metropolis. Jack Morgan followed his E- cigarette and saw that in the distance of the gray skyline, a bright, colorful light pierced through all the dimmets outside the window. The metropolis? As Jack Morgan sat up, the mechanical stretcher beneath him automatically moved closer to the window, allowing him to see more clearly. As the ship rapidly approached, a magnificent 3-dimensional neon city soon unfolded before Jack Morgan's eyes. Skyscrapers of varying heights were interspersed with bustling streets of red lights and green wine. All kinds of ships shuttled back and forth between dazzling, colorful neon signs and huge 3-dimensional projection advertisements. The sky and ground were a constant stream of traffic. All the advertisements were vivid and constantly changing. There seemed to be no restrictions on advertisements here. Guns, sex, all the explicit tags Jack Morgan couldn't imagine were playing freely on the streets. He could understand some of the ads, but he couldn't comprehend their content. Gluttony-enhanced stomach. Let you enjoy everything, devour everything. Whether it's lava or nuclear waste, you can taste it personally. Red-claced ovate. Youth Prone Inimax is now available, powerful and cheap. The gun body is made of safe polyester material 3D printed, non-toxic if ingested. Red clay stove, the only choice for children's weapons. The pedestrians on the street were dressed in 1,000 strange ways. All sorts of data cables and metal cyberware on their bodies were commonplace. There were even some who were more exaggerated than Tapa I. The continuous misty rain cast a hazy filter over everything. Looking at everything before him, Jack Morgan had a feeling of being in a dream, as if it were both real and illusory. Is this the metropolis? Jack Morgan's eyes widened to their limit, staring intently at everything outside the window. All of this formed an incredibly stark contrast with his own experiences, as if they were two completely different worlds. By the time the ship slowly landed, Jack Morgan's and Nexus 6's wounds had completely healed. Even Nexus 6's severed arm had been fitted with a medical spare cyber limb. The moment the hover corridor opened, the bright world outside instantly filled with sound. Jack Morgan, suddenly appearing in this extremely unfamiliar world, felt a sense of awkwardness, not knowing where to put his hands. Everything was very strange to him. Bro, let's have a blast together. Nexus 6, with an unstoppable smile on his face, casually walked over to a nearby car and slammed his mechanical arm against the glass. Then he pulled a cable from his cybernetic wrist and inserted it directly into the port in the steering wheel. With a click, the car started. Smash the glass, plug in the data cable, pull open the door. The series of actions was as smooth as flowing water. It was clear this wasn't the first time he had done this. This doesn't seem to be your car, does it? What's yours or his? If it's in my hands, it's mine. Let's go. Get in the car. When Jack Morgan and Tapa got into the car, Nexus floored the gas and shot off. Nexus drove without any regard for traffic rules, directly opening the convertible mode and speeding in the opposite direction of traffic. The wind rushing in blew Jack Morgan's hair and scalp back, and the rain hitting his face stung. In the end, he even stood up, steered with his feet, and raised his hands to cheer at the entire city. Freedom City. Well, fuck me, come on, I'm back alive again. The city's near minus light, minus polluting advertising noise was mixed with the faint sound of gunshots, as if welcoming his cheers. Damn it. Get down here, are you crazy or on rugs? Jack Morgan punched him directly, pulling him back into the driver's seat. Of course, what do you think I'm smoking right now? Just then, Jack Morgan's peripheral vision caught sight of someone on the roof of a building ahead, standing behind a floating advertisement doing something. There's someone there. It's nothing, just jumping off a building. As soon as he finished speaking, the person in the distance leapt off. Nexus 6, with an E- cigarette in his mouth, whistled in that direction. Whoa, dude's awesome, do a flip. As he spoke, he turned on his live stream again. The person jumping from the building seemed to hear him and managed a difficult flip in mid-minus air, then gave a middle finger in this direction. Splat. The person hit the ground, not far in front of the car, his entire head splitting open like a watermelon and instantly shattering into pieces with white and red splattering all over the ground. Nexus didn't care at all, as if it were a very trivial matter. He floored the gas pedal, and the car drove directly over the corpse, the tires leaving 2 deep imprints of flesh and blood in the rainwater. My god, what is wrong with the city? While Jack Morgan was still stunned by what had just happened, the car stopped in front of a towering building. At the very top of the building, white fireworks were being set off to the sound of men and women panting. Nexus 6 put his arm around Jack Morgan's neck and walked in. The sound of debauchery instantly replaced the advertisements, filling Jack Morgan's ears. Before Jack Morgan could get a clear look at the displays inside the building, he heard Nexus speak. Where are the whores? I want to get laid. In a nearby human Midas-sized transparent champagne glass, a cat woman in a miniskirt and glow minus the Midas dark stockings sat up from the champagne. Then, soaking wet, she swayed her tail and walked towards the two of them in high heels, meowing sweetly. The whore is here. Go lick him. This is my brother, the kind I die for. The cat woman with her cloying like sweet scent came closer. She danced around Jack Morgan, swaying her body against his, and whispered softly in his ear. The next moment, she bit her lower lip, thrust her chest forward, and spread her legs towards Jack Morgan. A peach minus pink light shot out from between them, illuminating Jack Morgan's mouth, wide open in shock, and his trembling pupils. It can even glow? Nexus 6 put his arm around his neck and shouted loudly in Jack Morgan's ear over the surrounding noise, brother. Welcome to Freedom City. Wait, hold on a minute. A bit overstimulated, Jack Morgan tried hard to look away, panting heavily. What's wrong, darling? Don't you like me? What kind do you like then? I can be anything. The Catwoman's soft body pressed against him, and she lifted her leg, wrapped in glow minus and minus dark stockings, and rubbed it against Jack Morgan. No, you wait a minute. Jack Morgan quickly reached out and pushed her away. My wound was just stitched up. I can't do any strenuous exercise. Next time, definitely next time. Just then, Nexus's head, with an E- cigarette dangling from his mouth, emerged from between the white flesh of 3 women. Bro, stop bullshitting. The nanobats from the treatment's enter already stitched you up. Don't tell me you like men? As he spoke, he pushed a nearly naked woman into Tapa I's arms. First time, it's okay, big sister will teach you. The Catwoman rolled. Her tongue in a blue peel was rolled up by her tongue and passed towards Jack Morgan's mouth. Suddenly, the room went dark. Jack Morgan instantly tensed up, and his metal cyber limb quickly grabbed the Catwoman's wandering hand. Just as Tapa I was raising its gun to block Jack Morgan, with a snap, a spotlight on the distant stage illuminated the host in a purple sequin suit. Dumb was like a Belarus. Switch to English. My buddy can't understand. As Nexus generously tipped for a small divine dragon effect, the host on stage immediately switched to English. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Club Sixtinsine for some fun. His voice was loud and clear. Next, please enjoy the wonderful performance by the Blues F4. Big Bird. As he said this, he even swung his arm forcefully in coordination. Big Bird, spin, 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 accompanied by explosive music. 6 bear minus, but a kid men pressed closely together in a human centipede formation, came on stage like a train. Then these men, with their arms around each other's shoulders, began to sway their bodies to the rhythm, and then the big birds really started to spin. As if to please them, these performers even tried their best to swing towards Jack Morgan and Nexus, striving to give their golden mina, stick-it daddies the best visual experience. Ah, my eyes, my eyes! Jack Morgan clutched his almost minus blinded eyes and ran out. By the time the cold rain dripped on Jack Morgan's head again, he was leaning on the railing, panting heavily. Although he was out, the mentally polluting image couldn't be erased from his mind. It's over, this brain is done for. Why did you come out? A disheveled Nexus walked over with his neck covered in lipstick marks. Bro, Linda minus Linda is very sad. She thought her charm wasn't enough. Jack Morgan ran his iron hand through his wet hair in frustration. You bring me to this kind of place as soon as we get to the city. I really have to thank you for that. All of this happened too fast and was too stimulating. It was more than he could handle after everything he had just been through. Also, no matter what, he still couldn't accept that a woman's private parts could glow. At this moment, Jack Morgan was really tired, both physically and mentally. Give me the money, the 30 at minus coins for saving you. Right now, he needed to settle down in the city first before making any other plans. No money, Nexus said very bluntly. What? Jack Morgan turned around, reached out with his iron hand, and grabbed him by the collar. Say you don't have money one more time? I really don't have money. You can kill me and I still won't have money. Nexus had the attitude of a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. Bullshit. You've been streaming for so long you dare say you don't have money? You just ordered drinks and you still dare say you don't have money. I did, but I spent it all. Don't you remember how we got here? That wouldn't have cost the whole 30 at minus coins. And don't forget your hand is mine. A black titanium combat limb from Volt minus Tech. Do you know how much that cost to buy? Can't that offset the debt? No, we signed the rescue agreement after your hand was taken, so this hand cannot be counted as payment for the subsequent reward. Tapa, I chimed in from the side. Just then, a hover car with black spray paint slowly flew over them. Calm down, don't attract the BCPD, Nexus explained with a grin. I never said I wouldn't pay you back. I just said I don't have the money right now. Looking at the others dead minus, not minus, afraid minus of minus boiling minus water attitude. Jack Morgan knew that unless he tied him up and used force, he probably wouldn't get anything out of him. After all, what the other guy said was right. He did pay the money to buy their lives from the corporation. And this Six was, arguably a friend, the only person he knew in the city. He might need this local for something in the future. Forget it. You can pay me back when you have the money. Jack Morgan knew he probably wouldn't get the money back, but by saying this, he would have a reason to ask for his help in the future. Hearing that he didn't have to pay, Nexus was instantly overjoyed, putting his arm around both of them and calling them bro over and over. Feeling the atmosphere was right, Jack Morgan chuckled and immediately followed up. Since we're all bros, if a bro is in trouble you have to help, right? I really don't have money. Nexus's face fell again. I don't want money. My brother and I just arrived in the metropolis and don't have a place to stay. It's not too much to ask to stay at your place for a few days, is it? Jack Morgan put his arm around Nexus's shoulders. The most urgent thing now is to find a place to live in this city, so they wouldn't be left homeless. Nexus thought for a moment and then answered, my place won't work, I have a roommate. But I can find you a place to stay. Thanks, bro. Jack Morgan gently punched him in the chest. Also, can you help me get a nervous system? I owe you for this one. The last one got fried by that bald-guised AM thing. I'll pay you back when I have money. Jack Morgan was naturally making this up. He didn't have any nervous system in his head at all, but if he wanted to survive in this place, he had to have this thing. Having come this far, Jack Morgan had also realized that this kind of nervous system was in everyone's head in this world. If he didn't have one, it would be like not having a cell phone in modern society, making it impossible to get by. Not to mention, even if Nexus had given him the 30 at minus coins before, he wouldn't have had a network account to install it. Nexus crossed his arms and thought for a while, picking at his gold tooth with his dark fingernail. All right then, but this is the last favor, okay? Don't always try to take advantage of me. How is it taking advantage of you? We're bros, right? Shouldn't bros help each other? Top Eye put his arm around his shoulder. Compared to Jack Morgan, it seemed to be adapting faster. Okay, bro, so are we going back into play or are we going to your place? Just as Nexus 6 said this, the building behind them let out another panting breath and shot off a burst of white fireworks. What's there to play? Let's go to the place first. After a day of turmoil, Jack Morgan's nerves were stretched to the limit, almost at the breaking point. He just wanted to find a place to rest. This Nexus guy had some serious nerve coming to a place like this right after escaping death. When the car started, Jack Morgan looked at the bizarre world outside through the glass, a sense of unreality always lingering in his heart. After watching for a while, he looked at Nexus, who was driving. This guy couldn't even drive properly. He started streaming again. Although this guy seemed quite unreliable, he was indeed loyal. Six, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but you don't have any money, yet you don't know how to save. You're even treating people and ordering drinks? You were so generous at the beginning. I thought you were some rich kid. Shit, what kind of talk is that? Are the at- coins I earn with my life meant to be saved? Nexus 6 said as he floored the gas and started to race. If you have money, you have to spend it like there's no tomorrow. What if you die one day and the money isn't spent? That would be a huge loss. Jack Morgan shook his head slightly. He really couldn't understand this guy's view of money and values. He had seen future worlds in movies on TV before, but he never expected the real future world to be like this. Just then, an English sign flashed by quickly. Jack Morgan knew he had entered the Queen's District. The car sped through the city's high and low buildings. As time went on, the garbage on both sides of the road gradually began to increase. Although the surrounding buildings were also flashing with neon lights, they were clearly starting to look shabby. When he saw a wobbly old man without pants standing on the side of the road urinating, Jack Morgan finally couldn't take it anymore. Where on earth are you taking us? To a place to live. Look, it's right ahead, that tall building. Jack Morgan followed his finger and through the car window saw a skyscraper. This building was very strange. Although the first 10 or so floors clearly had lights on from people living there, advertisements on the walls, the top was still in a state of scaffolding which was very incongruous. It wasn't quite right to call it unfinished, since people were living below, but it wasn't finished either, since the top wasn't sealed. The corridor opened and a frowning Jack Morgan followed Nexus towards the unfinished skyscraper. When the rain was blocked by the concrete, Jack Morgan saw people taking shelter from the rain. They looked dazed and had strange limbs, not much different from zombies. The vicinity was also filled with the stench of excrement, and feces and garbage bags were everywhere. I don't think this is a good place, Jack Morgan said, covering his nose. Bro, don't worry. These are just some poor people who've been messed up by drugs. They look scary, but they're not dangerous. As if to prove his point, Nexus pulled out a gun and fired a few shots at the roof. Hearing the gunshots, these people all fled along the walls like frightened hamsters. See, in the future, if someone asks you for food or cigarettes or whatever, you just do this and they'll behave. Passing through these homeless people, they entered an elevator. Nexus 6 pressed the button for the 18th floor. When they got out of the elevator, Jack Morgan found that it was barely acceptable here. At least the disgusting smell of urine and feces was gone. The stairwell certification can separate the two worlds. The garbage below won't affect you living up here, you can rest assured.